Hello everyone, and welcome to Tokens and Heft. We're doing this on 4th of July this year. Or this month. For those of you who are international or don't know, and 4th of July is when we celebrate our Independence Day. We generally get drunk, eat a bunch of food, and shoot fireworks into the air. It's your standard summer holiday for us. So, in honor of our patriotic holiday, I'm going to do a review of Fortress America. Wow. Fortress America is a game, I believe it actually originally came out in the 80s somewhere. It was definitely a very Cold War influenced kind of a theme back in the day. They've re-released it and it's kind of been like futurized and modernized, so, you know, you're not really, the forces aren't as political as they used to be. But the original basis of the game is more or less the U.S. is under siege by a bunch of filthy commies. That's not a comment on communism or anything, it's just, it was the mentality of a lot of 80s stuff. You know, this game has the same mentality as like movies like Red Dawn. Where the commies are invading and whoa, what are we gonna do? So let's actually take a look at this game. By Fantasy Flight, so your standard insert. The game is by Michael Gray, which I keep reading as Michael Bay half the time just because of the way the game is. We've got our lovely rule book, which, as I've said before, look, the very back sheet, or the very back page, is some quick reference stuff to help you out in the middle of the game. Always good. There's plenty of, everything's full color and nice and explains everything. The game, it's not that tough. There's a lot of little tiny finagly rules for specific situations, but overall, the basics of the game aren't too bad. It's kind of like a heavily themed Risk. We've got our board folded up in here. Dead units, and then reference cards for everybody. We've got the Western Invaders. I believe blue is the Southern Invaders. And then you've got, oh no. In red we have the Eastern Invaders. All three of these bags, these have the exact same collection of pieces. The same number of each type, the same breakdown. These are basically identical. Which is kind of a big deal of how the game works. Everyone's kind of got the same stuff to start off with. America, these are the pieces that America has stationed when the game starts. And these are the lovely partisan units and lasers that can show up. We'll get to those in a minute. We also have these lovely dice. They're custom and they're nice and chunky. They feel good to roll. There's a bunch of cards. You'll need them for... mostly for the US, but there's also like some variants with some other things. And speaking of variants, there is a way, with the purchase in the box, there is a variant where the different invaders can actually take strongholds, and then there's these nice little pieces, where you can actually place these over the existing space on the board and actually take them over. We haven't played with that yet. Honestly, I have only played this game. We got through 3 or 4 rounds before we were waiting for another game. For some reason, this is one of those games I can't get anyone else to play. It's simple, it's fun, I think we'd have a great time. But for some reason, when I've got the right amount of players, no one really seems that interested. Hold on a sec, and I will set up the game for everything. Alright, so here we have Fortress America all set up and ready to go. Hold on a sec. Do a bit of a shot. I've set up all the invaders. The US is all set up. Everything is ready to go. Now, for basic setup... there we go. For basic setup... there's a specific way to do it. I believe you start with the US. I don't know if they even get to set up first. I know First things you do, you unfold the board, everyone gets their sets of components. We have the handy dandy turn marker here. Starts on round 1. Once this hits the end, you don't actually win, but you might win. That'll make more sense in a minute. Basically, the way the game flows is the west attacks, the south attacks, the east attacks, then the US gets to do their retaliation. The US wins if they can survive this 11th round. If they make it all the way to the 11th one and survive till the end of this round, then they've won. The invaders win by taking out 18 cities. You might notice there's some of these little city markers. Are there any in good focus if I zoom in? Yeah, you can see a lot better there now. So we've got one there, there's one there, there's one there, there. Those are the cities you'll be trying to take over. Every time the invaders take a city, it comes off the map and actually goes up on the little space of whatever one you're at. If that fills up to 18, the invaders have won. If the US takes one back, then it actually goes back and they can put it back where it belongs. So there's a little bit of a pull and tug there. As I mentioned before, all the invaders have the exact same setup, or the exact same number of pieces, the exact same numbers of types, everything. Their breakdown is exactly the same, they just have different colors and custom tokens. The invaders get 8 infantry, 3 mobile units, which are like the transports, 4 hover tanks, 3 helicopters, and 2 bombers. I'll use the blue guys here. Here is one of your little infantry units. Where did I pull him from? I think it was here. Here's one of the mobile units. A sec, it's easier if I do it that way. Got a better light on it. So there we go. It's a little mobile unit. Hey, how's it going? Little cannon on top. The hover tanks are pretty obviously hover tanks. You know, they're not the greatest miniatures in the world, but these are nice little pieces. I like them. I like the design of them, too. Helicopters are more like, what are they, Ospreys or something? These twin-bladed little futuristic-looking guys. Kind of getting Terminator flashbacks, actually. And then, of course, bombers are your classic stealth bomber kind of look. I forget the actual designation, but someone will yell at me in the comments about it. So each invader takes those guys and sets them up in his invasion zones. You can see they're clearly marked out. And you can only have a maximum of 5 guys per invasion zone. So, like this corner down here is all full up. I could not put any more pieces in there. So all 3 sides do that, and then the US places 2 of their starting units in each of the territories that has a city. They don't have to be the same unit. You can mix it up. You can do it however you want. But all of their 60 units that they start the game with are out on the board to go at the very beginning of the game. That's basically set up. There are also, I mean, everyone's got their own little pile of tokens and things. Everyone gets a handy-dandy reference sheet. These are all exactly the same. There's no difference between factions. Here's a reminder of how the 3 main special abilities work. We have scouting, which is the helicopters can kind of swing out and check things out a little bit. Transport, which basically is the mobile units can move they don't have a diagram. The mobile units can bring one of the infantry with them during the one phase. And then bombing, which is what the bombers, of course, can do, which is pretty nice. So, let's go over what's going on here. Basically, these 3 forces are trying to invade the United States. In In the current version of the game, the plot is that the US developed these awesome laser weapons and now everyone's attacking the US. In the original version, it was kind of just, we're the United States and the commies are after us. They're coming at us from all sides now. You can flavor it however you want. I think the original theme is a little more fun, even though it's not politically correct or anything like that. It's more fun for the game, and you take your mind back to that time when the Cold War was going on and everyone was terrified that the Ruskies were gonna get us. If that offends anyone, I'm sorry for saying Ruskies. It's just, I think it's a hilariously dated term. Alright, so first phase is reinforcements. Doesn't happen during the first round, of course. But that is when these guys get the invaders get a set number of guys to bring in. Then there's declare battles. If you'll see in your little sheet, you've got two types of movement listed for every unit. You've got maneuvers movement, which is how far they'll be able to move to get into position for battle. So you declare battles, then you maneuver the guys, then if it's the US player's turn, he does lasers, then you actually do the fight. You actually go through all the combat on your turn. So maneuvers is how you're going to move your guys around to get them in space for combat. After combat happens, where is it? After combat you have invasion. Invasion is your standard movement. You can move into any territory that isn't occupied by an enemy. So you see, both the types of land units do not have any kind of maneuvers movement. That's why you need to use transports to get them around and get them in position for battle. Mechanized units, which are both the mobiles and the hover tanks, they can both move one territory space. Air units, the helicopters and the bombers. Helicopters have 2, bombers have 4. Lasers don't move. Lasers don't need to move. And they've also color-coded the dice so you can tell what everyone rolls. So, first you have to declare battles. And let's just say it's this guy's turn because it's the easiest for me to demonstrate. If I wanted this group here, say I want them to attack Texas down here and take over San Antonio. I would take one of their control markers. That side denotes that you have control. This side is a battle you've declared. And all three factions have a similar thing. There's these guys and their battle side. And then, make sure it's right side up. These guys and their battle side. The U.S. doesn't get markers like that. If the U.S. is going into an enemy-occupied territory, they flip their control marker to the battle side. So say one of these blue guys wants to attack. Take a marker, flip it to the correct side. I'm like, I'm going to attack there. You do this for everywhere that you want to attack, actually. So say these guys want to declare a battle in there. And these guys want to do a battle over there. So now you've declared your battles. Now it's maneuvers. Let's see. I have a mobile unit here, so he can take one of these guys along with him. Though, I'm sorry, it doesn't actually matter. You don't need to be in the same space to attack them. It's not like Risk. You just have to be in an adjacent territory. So, I don't really have to do maneuvers for a lot of these guys. But here's how it works. Say I want to do maneuvers. I can take this little transport unit, load up this guy inside it, maneuver him there. I can bring this guy in at the side. I can even, I think, put the bomber on top, but the bombing ability is a little off. Aha, I see. Okay. So just to keep things simple, I'm just going to move these guys in. So now these guys are also adjacent to this territory. They can also join in on the battle. So, say that's all I'm doing for this first turn. Then you can move on to the actual combat. Defenders fire first. In this case, we have a regular infantry unit who gets one of these little red dice. I'll flip this around so my life is easier. You get one of these little red dice. And I've got a hover tank who gets one of these lovely white 8-siders. More or less, you're just going for hits. There are 3 results for any given die. There is a hit that for any guy that'll hit, and that does 1 damage. It's like Risk. If you do 1 damage, they remove a guy. There is a retreat or disengage. If you're the attackers, you retreat. If you're the defenders, you retreat. If you're the attackers, you disengage. They're more or less the same. You retreat to a friendly territory. And then this little sucker here is combined arms. A lot of the time, this still counts as a regular hit, but if you're in a territory with a city, or if you're attacking a city, or you're attacking one of these shaded areas with the brown cross hatching on it, those are all mountainous terrain. Those also require combined arms if you want those to count. What that means is you need to have a foot soldier, a mechanized unit, and an air unit all in that participating in the battle. Otherwise, the combined arms fire won't count. So that's part of the strategy of the game, is making sure you have all the right pieces in there to get the right amount of boni, or bonuses. So let's do this. These guys attack this whole set of guys. Uh-oh. So I got a hit and a disengage. The disengage, I think, means this guy leaves the territory. And this guy got a hit, and there's a sequence of casualties. Is it not on either of these reference things? Well, it's foot units, mechanized, air, lasers. Actually, no. There it is. Each unit has its own way of doing this. So I hit with a hover tank. He can choose whether a foot soldier or a mechanized unit gets toasted. If there's nothing else left after that, then it's air. Foot soldiers have to kill. Foot units have to be taken out, then mechanized, then air. Air units and lasers can choose any unit. So we've got these guys. Have been shot, and to make my life easier, there are 2 hover tanks here, so I'm going to take out one of the hover tanks. When you destroy an opponent's creature, well, unit, they don't go back to their supply. They never go back to the supply. That's why we have this special little card here. And it's divided in 4 if you want to keep the 4 spots sectioned out. But anyone who dies in the game ever goes to this board. Except maybe partisans, I think. I don't know. The US has its own weird thing for deployment. But if they die, they come here. So, the guys you start with, and this pile of guys, that's all you have for the whole game. You are not going to get any more pieces. You're not going to bring anyone back from the dead. It just does not happen. This is the entirety of the force you've committed, and once it's done, you have nothing else to throw at them. So now, I can actually have these guys attack. So, what do we got going on? There are 2 infantry in the battle, so we get 2d6. We have a hover tank and a mobile unit. So the mobile unit gets us another 6er. The tank gets us d8. And I have a hover tank and a chopper. So helicopters get one of these. And I already went over the hover tank. Yes. So here are all the dice I'm rolling. Let's roll up here and see how we do. Alright, I took out 1 guy, which is all that was left, so that's cool. But I also got a retreat. Which means that has to happen first. Cool, and that was on one of those guys. I don't know. Let's have... The helicopter's got a lot of movement, so I'll have the chopper retreat. They just have to retreat to a friendly space. So now these are all taken care of. Next, you can do invasion. Anyone with invasion movement can move into that space. So these guys all have invasion movement. They have moved into that space. Well, actually, you would do combat for everyone on all of your guys. Then you will do invasion. You do them all in like big chunks. I'm just concentrating on the one here. And now that we've done this, after the invasion, you have to do a supply check. Now, only invaders have to do this. Once they move there, you have to trace an unbroken line of your guys back to one of your invasion zones. So here, and they're right next to an invasion zone, no problem. You check that for everyone, then you can flip this over. Blue now controls that territory. And the little city will move up here. And that's one turn. I didn't do everything, but that's one turn, and that's pretty much how the game works for everyone. The US has a few little extra things I'll go over in a second here, but that's basically it. Now, the US, even on the first turn, they're still going to get reinforcement because they will have... Because all of these guys, and all of these guys will have done all of their turns before the US gets to do anything. And the US doesn't just get a set amount of reinforcements. The US gets to draw partisan cards. I believe it's 2 standard. So let's just see what the first one is. Small rebel groups raid the southern countryside. Distribute 2 partisans and 2 mobile units among the territories in the southern sector. Place units separately where possible, then discard this card. And we would get 2 infantry and 2 mobile units. The downside is, since I didn't play through a whole round, nothing else has died. The US are the only people who can get dead units to come back, and it's only because they have these partisan cards. So, if I had 1 or 2 of these guys, I could bring them out, and 1 or 2 of these guys, I could bring them out. If I had 2 of each, I could bring them all out, placing them in separate areas, and they have to be in the southern territories, which they're kind of outlined. They're a lot easier to see when stuff isn't on them, but there are these thicker blue outlines. So this is the south area. So I would have to place them out in there. And if we're doing 2 cards, what is this? You also get stuff that aren't reinforcements. Legions of Liberty, make coordinated attack. Choose 2 different enemy-occupied city territories and destroy 1 invader military unit in each of them. Then discard this card. That's awesome! It's not units, but you get to weaken their forces a little bit. I'm trying to find one. See, these are all normal and bring back military units. Ha ha ha, here we go. 2 mountain guerrilla units strike an invader's convoy. Choose 1 mountain territory that is not a city territory, destroy 2 invader military units there. Retreat any units left there. Destroy any of those units that cannot be retreated. Next, place 2 partisans in the territory. Finally, discard this card. See those little guys? Those aren't soldiers. Those are partisan units, which are these fellows. See, the United States citizens have a ton of people, or include a ton of people, who will rise up and fight for our cause. He's got his backwards trucker cap on. He's just loaded with whatever he can find. I think he's got a beard. Yeah, it looks like it. I know he's not on camera right now, but I can see a little better without it. But these represent the crazy yokels that are just gonna... They're gun nuts who have been waiting for this type of thing to happen. They've been talking about it all their lives. There's just good men and women who... or maybe they're in the reserves, or used to be in the military, and still keep a rifle or 2 around. They're any number of just American citizens who have taken up the cause and are not going to let the country fall. And these guys are kind of crazy. Normally, they only have the regular red 6-sider, but if they're the only foot soldier of their type, then they will do a D10 instead. I believe I'm saying that right. I'm just trying to find it real quick in this silly little book. So I could have sworn there was a chunk that just talked about the units individually. No, it's in here. Because the only other option is if they're the only one participating in the battle at all, and that's a little unfair. But if they're the only like foot soldiers, they get a D10 instead of a D6. So your partisan units can really help out, especially because they just pop up out of nowhere. Like, look at that. Remember the Alamo, shouted by new Texas Rangers as they raided invader strongholds in the South. You get 4 partisans to put among any territories in the South, then discard the card. So, the U.S. has that, which is awesome. But the U.S. also, at the start of every U.S. turn, the U.S. gets a laser. They get a nice little laser, and despite the treads on the bottom, the lasers do not move, as I believe I said earlier. Oh, I love these little things. When you get a laser, you can put it in any city you want, and it gets a little laser targeting marker, which generally we just keep right by it. Now, here's how this works. On the US player's turn, after they've declared battles and maneuvered, but before they actually start fighting combat, just take one of these, I don't know, put it in any territory that has a bunch of guys there, or that has enemy units in it. You take this black D10, and if you get a 5 or higher, you can destroy something in that territory. Oh look, I got a 5. I blew up their hover tank. That's all the lasers do. It's one shot. I think it's 60% chance, I believe. Yeah. To succeed. And they get one of those every round. They have to survive long enough each round, of course, but they get one of them every round. So, as the invaders are going through their forces, losing guys here and there, and slowly, kind of weakening a little bit, running out of reinforcements to put out, the U.S. slowly gets stronger and stronger. They get more partisan units. They get old military units that have been destroyed. They get them back. They get these lasers that start tipping the scales a little bit. So if they can survive long enough, they can be pretty powerful, but they start off just ridiculously weak. Honestly, most of these territories around the coast are gonna get taken during that first 3 rounds, where each of those 3 invaders go. By the time the U.S. player gets their first chance to do anything, there'll be like 5 to 7 cities will already have been captured. And that's where the game really begins in my mind. Like, it's the tug of war where you're trying to just do a little bit better each time it's your turn, get a little farther towards that goal. I kind of like that it's a little asynchronous. The game they have rules for 2 and 3 player variants, but you should really not play this unless you're playing 4 different people playing the game. 1 at each end of the board, playing a different faction. I've only barely played this game, and I love it. Sitting here talking about it got me all excited again. It's a really neat game. It's been around for a while, and it still works really well mechanically. It's just a neat, cool thing. I just like the general concept. I'm sure that somebody could skin this and make a variant where it's fantasy version of it, or this is kind of sci-fi already, but a way more sci-fi one. Like maybe you're on the moon or Mars or something. A little bit like Risk. And this is kind of, at its core, it's slightly more complicated Risk. Not much more complicated. I know I had a lot to explain, and there's a lot of little tiny things that I haven't gone over, like the scouting ability of the choppers. They have like 4 movement, and they have this great movement where they can just get around and they can fly over enemy territories without being stopped. Same thing with the bomber. But the bomber actually gets to bomb guys at the end, which is pretty nice. It's a really neat little game. Well, screw this. This is a 3x3 foot piece of wood I got here, and it's not enough room really to set up the whole game. I love this. I think you guys should check it out. It's been around for a long time. It was re-released a little while ago, and that's the version I've got. I recommend it. If you like Risk, especially if you like a nice 4-player game of Risk, if you like something a little more strategic with a little more options than Risk, definitely check it out. If you just like the general theme, which is what really did it for me. I mean, to me it was Risk with this invasion mechanic, this invasion theme, which, having grown up for a little bit in the 80s, I can still remember when people were like that, when we were worried that, oh, the commies were going to come and invade us. It's just fun for me. It's a neat little idea, and wow, I don't see how the US can win this a lot of the time. It's just, it seems stacked against you, but those lasers really turn the tide. Anyway, it's enough for me rambling about how much I like the game. You've got my opinions. I think you should check it out. If you have a chance to play it, definitely give it a shot. And for everyone else who's in the US like me, happy 4th of July, everyone. I'll see you guys next time.